Hi, welcome back to the Mike Gormley Show. We were just listening to, as far as I'm concerned, one of the great recordings of all time, especially coming out of Michigan with Question Mark and the Mysterians. And it's 96 Tears was what a great record that was. But it was an international hit. You didn't really know it was Detroit at the time because it wasn't that hard rock. It was sultry in its way.
Yeah.
But earlier that we were listening to Kiss a little bit going into the commercial. Tell us a story about you and Kiss. You ended up on stage in full makeup. That's unbelievable. And you go ahead. Let us know how all that happened.
Well, there used to be an ad in teen magazines and fashion magazines that was for this bra called Maidenform Bra. And they had women who would wake up in odd places, like in a courtroom or on the street as a traffic cop, and they would just be wearing their Maidenform bra. So obviously that had a big effect on me. So I got this idea to call my piece, I Dreamt I Was on Stage with Kiss in My Maidenform Bra. And the reason for the story is we kept crazy. If you talk about rebellious, we wrote all night. We never slept. And one night, Connie Kramer, the publisher's wife, and she was associate publisher, read this article in Esquire magazine about this woman, Blair Sobel, who was an Ikeette. She did a story where she went on the tour with Ike and Tina Turner and the Ikeettes. So Connie said to me, could you do that? And I go, just theoretically. And I go, yeah, oh, in a minute, I could do that. And she goes, who would you do it with? And I go, I would dress up like Kiss and go on stage with them. She goes, really? And I go, yeah, let me try. So the next morning I woke up and I called the VP of promotion, Larry Harris, and I said, I've got this great idea for a story. It wasn't Kiss at the top of their career. This was Kiss before they recorded a live, their big breakout live album. It was early-ish Kiss. So I called, they said, sure, you can do that. And I go, really? And goes, yeah. I goes, the one thing you can't do is call them a glitter band. And I go, why would I? So um, about a week later, they're due into town, and I go down to Cobo Hall where they're going to play, and I go and I meet up with the guys in the band, and I said tomorrow night that'll be me up there with you, and I realized nobody had told them. Like
Oh
Castle
no.
Records had told me, yeah, but didn't have to tell any of the members. So I thought, oh boy, I've got a hard road here. But eventually they said yeah, and I met them at the Detroit Metro Airport the next morning with with my little pack of like tights and like hair doodads and like really tall high heels, and I was all ready to go. What I thought, and this is really me being naive, I was young, but naive doesn't even begin to cover it. I thought I was going to do the whole show with them. you know I don't know how to play guitar. My voice is okay. Uh, but it turned out that they were going to let me do the last song, Rock and Roll All Night and Party Every Day. And so prior to that, it's like they made me up to look like them. And they got in a fight as they're making me up because they keep thinking they're making, like Gene is making me too Gene, and they didn't have enough room on my face for like Peter's cat's eye, because it had to be a composite of all of them. And it was just real, it was just really funny. And I was so nervous. I couldn't believe, like, it was a great idea at the time, but when execution came, I kept thinking, oh man, this would be so humiliating if I don't go on stage with them. So I finally, my number's up and I go on stage, and it felt like home. It felt like I understood why every musician doesn't want to retire, because it was like these energy bots, these waves of love or waves of fire. It's like it made me reconsider how I wrote about music from then on. But the funniest thing for me is, and I think about this in hindsight, like that was in, I think, 1975. No one who was at that show, and it was a pretty big show, Rush had opened up for them. Nobody ever mentioned, no one realized I was on stage. No one realized there was an extra member of Kiss. So I wrote the story, and the story just blew up. I mean, the Braille Musicians Guide reprinted it, New Musical Express reprinted it. it's like it was like all over. It was because I felt like I was like a war correspondent who somehow inserted herself into this rock band and wrote it like that. So I just
They didn't even introduce you?
no, it was just all of a sudden there's an extra kiss on stage, you know, with a lot of red lipstick.
And some people were going, huh? And other people didn't even notice. So
No one noticed it's like a staged moonwalk. And but I didn't realize that at the time. I only realized that, I'm not kidding you, like a couple of years ago, someone asked me a question about it, and I go, I think they asked, did anybody ever get in touch with you about that? And I go, nobody who was there, no, it wasn't in a review of the show, nothing. So I could have made it up, everybody, but I
well,
did.
actually, that made your story better. Your story was now revealed in a way, and people will go, I didn't see her. So
I know. But I have to say it really changed my life.
because he understood what they were going through.
I did. And it was good. They never ever used my name, Jan. They would always call me Uhelszki. So I really felt like one of the band. I covered them a lot. I had run into them at a Naris convention really early on, right after their first album. And I came back after I saw them. It was in New York, and I said to my Creem, like other editors, I said, "Oh, I have to cover this band." And I go, "Oh, hell no. They're like clowns. They're like rock and roll clowns. They're like New York Dolls trash." It's like, no. And I said, "No, believe me, we have to cover them." They go, "Okay, if you want to cover them, you cover them. You are the Kiss editor now. Like any Kiss stories you're writing." So I wrote like a ton of Kiss
Oh,
stories.
really? You
So
got to know them really well.
I do. I mean, not so much now, but I still cover them. I mean, in the last issue of Creem, I interviewed Maynard James Keenan from Tool, and I was really having trouble with him. He was kind of a withholder and not really shy, but very withdrawn. And I knew he was a big Kiss fan. The picture of him on his Facebook page or Instagram page is him dressed up as Ace. So I thought, okay, I don't think I could get Ace, but I bet I could get Gene Simmons to come and interview him with me because I wanted him to warm up. And he said, "Yeah." So I've got the issue that's out right now is um, Gene Simmons interviewing Maynard from Tool. So
That's great.
it's kind of like Kiss and Cream grew up together, like they were just starting and we were, just taking the training wheels off. So there was always this real affection for them later after they
Yeah,
stopped calling them clowns.
they weren't clowns though. I mean, they knew what they were doing,
They did. They really did.
and their manager at that time was a pretty sharp guy too.
I loved him. It's like he had that show Supermarket Sweep
Yeah,
where you could, you go on this quiz show and you took your little shopping cart and whoever got the most, items won. It's like I love that show. It was like American Greed.
yeah, right. Well, that you never did that with any other band or anything like it.
Um, well, Lester Bangs did something similar afterwards. He went on stage with Jay
I-
Giles.
Yeah, all right, go ahead.
Because we used to hang out a lot with rock bands who come into Detroit, and Jay Giles was there quite a bit. And we were all at this party, and Lester said to him, his job was so easy. Peter Wolf's job was so easy. All I had to do was go out there every night. And they got into an argument who had the easier job. So Peter Wolf invited Lester on stage to review the show on stage. So there's a whole story about what that was like. So we'd always do stunts like that. Like we were very high concept, like trying to take a situation with a rock band and turn it on its head. Like we were as big a part of the story as the artists themselves. Those back to Lester for a second, those stories that he did with Lou Reed, the fight between them, it's like a trilogy. He did 3 of them. That becomes the fight is bigger than the records he was talking about that Lou had made, all of his solo stuff, not Velvet stuff, really.
Well, I think that's why Cream could tell stories nobody else could, because there was a camaraderie with a lot of the musicians.
Yeah, or hate sometimes. We would beat them up. Like basically they'd be on pedestals and all we wanted to do was pull them off the pedestals and show them as humans, which was
Yeah.
always the ethos of Cream.
It's
And
more interesting.
I think so. I always want to know who the human is behind the the stage.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's always so much more interesting.
Well, we're gonna step out for commercial and listen to some Detroit history. Um, and the name Bob Seger would be known by multitudes of people. Not all of them would necessarily know this song that we're going to play on the way out, which is called Heavy Music, because it was before he really broke big. But
Yeah.
it is a great, great recording. So let's listen to Bob Seger, Heavy Music, and we'll come back with Jaan Uhelszki from Creem magazine. Uhelszki, sorry, I said it wrong.
Everybody does.